Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to Lunch and Learn, which is a partnership series between the Prince George's County Office of Human Rights and the Prince George's County Memorial Library System. My name is Kyla Hannington, and I'm the Public Outreach and Engagement Division Chief with the Prince George's County Office of Human Rights, the county's civil and human rights education and enforcement agency. With me as co-hosts today from the library system are Dr. Audrey Lau, the library's Adult and Senior Services Specialist, and Isaiah West, who's the library's Teen Services Specialist, as well as Tiana Davis, who a lot of you probably recognize from other Lunch and Learns. She's the Outreach Specialist with the Office of Human Rights. We are absolutely thrilled today to welcome Mike Curato in conversation about his new graphic novel for adults, Gaysians, a heartwarming story following 4 gay Asians navigating love, identity, and friendship. And it's a celebration of queer chosen family. Mike Curato is the author and illustrator of the children's book series Little Elliot. He is also illustrator of What If by Samantha Berger, All the Way to Havana by Margarita Engel, Worm Loves Worm by J.J. Austrian, The Power of One written by Trudy Ludwig, If I Were a Fish by Cork and Olivia Barton, and contributed to What's Your Favorite Color by Eric Carl and Friends, Sunny Day, a celebration on the Sesame Street theme song, and Dear Heartbreak, YA authors and teens on the dark side of love. Publishers Weekly named Mike a fall 2014 flying start. In the same year, he won the Society of Illustrators Original Art Show Founders Award. And Mike's debut young adult graphic novel, Flamer, was awarded the 2020 Lambda Literary Award for LGBTQ Young Adult and the 2021 Massachusetts Book Award for Middle Grade Young Adult. Gaysians is his adult debut. So welcome, Mike. It is an honor to have you with us. Tiana just held up that beautiful book. To get us started today, could you take a few minutes just to introduce viewers to the book?
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. Glad to be with you all. And I'm going to share my screen and talk a little bit about the book to get us started. So let me just get this up here. Okay. Can everyone see?
You know, we can. I think what's happened though is, can I get you to, I think what you need to do is get it on present mode and then share your screen, because we are seeing the smaller version right now again.
Oh, it is in present mode. Okay,
okay. We'll try one more time.
Closing that. Okay. I've just put in present mode again. Any luck?
No, it's the same.
Okay, I'm just gonna kind of zoom in on this then.
There you go. That's great if you do that.
Okay. All right. So yes, Gaysians is the story of four friends living in Seattle in the early 2000s. And here's a little story behind the story. 2003, I was a little baby gay. I came out my senior year of college. And I didn't really know many gay people. I met a few, but all of my really close friends were straight, and most of them were white. So, you know, I didn't really have anyone who I could like fully relate to in some ways. But they were very supportive, and they wanted to know, you know, how can we support you? And I'm like, I have no idea. I don't know what I'm doing. But 4 of us packed up 2 cars, as you can see are on the right, and we drove west to Seattle because we couldn't afford New York or San Francisco, and Seattle just sounded cool. And we like lived in a hotel for like 3 to 4 weeks, trying to find jobs and a place to live. Yeah, not a lot of planning there, but I would never do this ever again, but I'm really glad I was young and wild and took a chance. But when I got to Seattle, I was kind of ready to embrace my new life being out, but I didn't have a community. So I was a bit of a fish out of water. Excuse me. So I started Googling, you know, what are gay things to do in Seattle? And I actually found, besides like going to bars, there was this organization called Gay City, which is now Seattle's LGBTQ plus center. And they had a bunch of programs, including one called Coffee Talks. And basically, people could just come to these events during the day. It was a sober event at like a cafe, and there'd be like a topic, and we would discuss it. And the first time I went, I met these folks. These are two of my friends. It's Sim on the left and Brian on the right. And they were my first like gay friends and like gay Asian friends at that. And they kind of became my gay mom and dad. They kind of took me under their wing and helped show me the ropes and whatnot. And then my friend Jay kind of, joined us a year later. And we had kind of formed this little chosen family. And we were friends with other people too. And we had a lot of fun. There was going out, there was drag, there were parties. But at the heart of it, it was the first time in my life where I was around people that could see me in this really three-dimensional way and could understand my experience in a way that I didn't really have to explain to them. And I didn't realize at the time just how important and pivotal that moment was for me.
Mm-hmm.
And so this book is actually dedicated to those three friends, Brian, Jay, and Sim. And we're still friends today, although we live kind of far apart. There's Sim there. And here are Brian and Jay. They still live in Seattle. Sim is an academic and so kind of travels where the work is. And here we are back in the day. So as I said, we had our own little chosen family, and chosen family is a theme that runs through Gaysians, the book. You can see the characters on the left there, and we're doing our own little Joy Luck Club mommies and daughters pose. And I have to give flowers to Amy Tan because growing up, I was so starved for Asian representation. And, because I was a little closeted baby gay, I loved a show or a movie with a strong female lead cast. And so when the Joy Luck Club came out, I was obsessed, and I watched it so many times. And then I read the book as an adult. And I named this group of friends the Boy Luck Club in honor of that. And kind of looked to Amy's work for inspiration when I was first kind of starting to write the book. But then, I kind of ended up doing my own thing. But she's an incredible storyteller, and I'd never written a story with an ensemble cast before, so very helpful to be able to read her work. I also have to give a shout out to some other, female casts. These are shows about women written by gay men for gay men. Yeah, I like the archetypal systems of these shows. Like all of them have, mommy, daddy, clown, and ho, I guess. I say lovingly. And you could kind of assign those labels to each of my characters as well. And also, I just want to point out, there were shows like way back when that at the time were pushing the envelope, right? Because we had very little gay queer representation in media. And so these were some like ensemble casts that were really new and exciting back then, but also a bit of a singular narrative that focused on mostly white people, mostly certain kinds of bodies, mostly certain ages. So, you know, it was a starting place. And I definitely rewatched The Broken Hearts Club, which is a movie that I truly adored when I first came out. I was like, oh yeah, I want this. I want this sort of like community of friends. Queer as Folk I started to watch, and then, you know, started to realize I didn't finish the series because I realized, like, you know, there's really no one in this who I really relate to, no one who looks like me, except for maybe um, a sex worker who barely spoke English. So, you know, work to be done. Meanwhile, I, you know, I was inspired to make this because it's a book I wanted to read and it's not on a shelf for me. So I had to make it, as a lot of people who create things are inspired to do. It's not there, so you got to make it. But I'm also in Gaysians, you know, writing outside of my own personal experience a lot, because this is an ensemble cast that features people of different ethnicities, different gender expressions, different life experiences. And there's one character that, you know, is a bit parallel with my own experience, but I spoke with about 30 different people of various backgrounds. And that process was so important to the development of like three-dimensional characters in this book, but also it was so validating to get the support from my community and from people I didn't even know, who were like just excited about the project, excited to have their stories told. So there are a lot of parts of this book that I'm indebted to this group of people for sharing. And this is an illustration towards the end of the book. I most of the interviewees are illustrated on this page. So I also really wanted the characters to look realistic. I feel like oftentimes in comics, Asian people are often westernized, like their features are westernized, and I just really wanted to show Asian beauty. I wanted Asian people to look at this and feel good about themselves and feel truly seen. So very grateful to these folks who modeled for three of the main characters, and I modeled for the fourth one. And I also used a lot of real reference from my life way back when for inspiration when working on the illustrations. And here are just a few process slides. So you can see here, this is a sort of doodle, honestly, I made on the left when I was first writing the script. Just something to keep up on my board to inspire me while I wrote. And now you can see the final cover on the right. And I also created a sample scene when we were selling the book to go along with the manuscript. And that's a page on the left from the sample scene. And then that same page in final form on the right. So it was a bit of a journey. For some reason, I have to completely finish writing graphic novels before illustrating them, before doing much artwork at all. It's very different in my picture book work, where I have to draw and write at the same time, but graphic novels, I definitely just work on the script. So it took me about 2 years to write this on and off while I illustrated other projects. This is that Highlights Foundation. I did a little writing retreat there. And I started off writing by just sort of doing a brain dump of my own experiences and memories, issues that I wanted to talk about in the book. And that's where I kind of formed my questionnaire to talk to my interviewees about. And then I sat down and wrote the script, which took a very long time and had many many iterations. And you can see here, this is my plotting wall. This is my story arc in post-it form.
Wow.
It's a very long book, and I had to be able to see it all at once and not just like on my tiny computer screen. And this is a great technique I learned so that you can like move some things around easily. Yeah, and just see everything at once. I also am a spreadsheet nerd, and I used this to kind of make sure that each of my characters had equal screen time, so to speak. So each color represents a different character, and each line is a different scene. So I could kind of tally to make sure, like, oh, this one is not getting as much as the other. Here's a sketch of one of the spreads. And here is the inked version. And this is all digital, actually. It was just so huge. Flamer is hand-drawn, but I wouldn't have been able to finish this on time if I, did it by hand traditionally. But I tried to make it look as if it were traditional medium. And you can see here, this is a finished spread. And I did all of the line work and all of the shading, but I did have a team towards the end of production who helped me finish up the flat color. So you could see like the big areas of pink and the balloons and things like that. I may have done that, or ask someone else to do that. So it does take a village sometimes. So I wanted to share a little bit about the characters. So this is AJ, and AJ is the character that I'm most like. He's very much me when I first moved to Seattle, fish out of water, just not really knowing anything, and kind of going on this series of like ridiculous dates, awful dates. AJ is hell-bent on trying to find a boyfriend because he thinks it's going to afford him some kind of like stability, or that a relationship will finally cement his happiness. So that's kind of his arc. And he is at his first gay bar and accidentally spills a drink all over Kay, who is a drag queen and activist. Kay is mother. Kay is the matriarch of this group. She's very strong. She's very involved in her community. She's always the first one to step up and give back and support people. But she also, comes from, a painful childhood. She was cast out by her family. She does this little spoiler, but still, I think important to share now. She is a trans woman and had, quite a hard journey to get there. But she moves to Seattle and is determined to live the life that she knows she's destined for, that she knows she deserves. And I should say that, well, I'll save that for later. Hold on.
Okay.
And then there's John, who is who's also very strong, but more of the quieter type. He's like a web developer. He's a gamer, Gaymer. He is very steadfast and loyal, and he's the rock. He's the behind the scenes kind of guy. And despite his strength, he feels he does not feel seen by most people. He struggles with constant microaggressions, and he wants to keep his friends safe, and he has moments of uncertainty because he isn't sure how he can do that sometimes. And he's also in love with his roommate, Steven, um, who is a good time girl. Like, Steven likes to have fun. Steven doesn't want to talk about problems. And Steven is only interested in dating white men, basically. Um, and, you know, when the book starts off, Steven is like fun, funny, and flighty, and comes off maybe a little dumb or insincere. But Stephen also comes from a lot of pain. And he works in a nursing home, and one of his patients is this elderly Vietnamese man who has dementia. And he mistakes Stephen for his lover. And this experience talking with this man is pulling Stephen back towards that past that he's been trying so hard to avoid through, you know, his never-ending bouts of fun. And Stephen is an immigrant. He moved to the US as a child and grew up in Ohio, and went through a lot of difficulties that he'd rather not think about. And all of them, you know, really struggle with their own challenges, being queer and Asian and living in America. You know, there's a lot of body image issues, you know, just feeling respected and seen as just an individual sometimes can be quite challenging. And, you know, I play a lot with stereotypes in this book. It's a starting place. And I just feel like there are a lot of things that really happen that we don't talk about. But my goal for this group of characters is to maybe highlight some of these stereotypes and then strip them away throughout the course of the story until we just see each character's humanity. Because we're just people at the end of the day. And there is an incident that happens that really breaks down the group. All the interpersonal connections start to break. And there's this pivotal moment where they have to decide, you know, are we really going to show up for each other? Mm-hmm. Or are we just going to walk away from this? And that's really the message of this book is, you know, these people aren't friends because they are gay and they're Asian. They're friends because they see each other and they understand each other and they show up for each other at the end of the day, you know, in a world that's built to tear them apart, like that's built to just constantly put challenges in their way. They still show up, and by walking through that fire together, that is what forges the chosen family that they've created. So I'm going to stop sharing now, and we can jump into some conversation.
Well, that was fantastic. That was a great presentation. Thank you so much. And for those of you watching at home, please, you know, if you have questions, like, please share them. We will share them with Mike as time allows. I'm really glad that you highlighted the stereotypes that we see that the book looks at, because one of the things that I really appreciated about this was the fact that AJ, Kay, John, Stephen, they're young, they're gay, they're Asians, they were all assigned male at birth, but they are all themselves very diverse, and they have different personalities, they have different goals, they have different things they're looking for in relationships or not looking for in relationships. And I thought that was, like, to me, such an important thing to highlight. And so I was hoping you could just talk to us a little more, like, about and I know you have friends. There's an element of this that whether or not it's memoir, it feels memoiristic, but I also know you said that you interviewed many people to tell these stories. So you could just talk a little bit about building these four very diverse people.
Yeah. It's funny because now these characters have become their own people to me, they feel very real and they kind of live in the abstract. And I'm like, oh, I wonder what Kay's doing today, or like, what's John up to now? They're you know, they live in my heart truly, but yeah, they're really amalgamations of those interviews, of my real life friends, and of my own experience. So I would say, even though AJ is very much in line with my own experience, I feel like each character kind of represents a different part of my, you know, growth as a person as well. Um, and yes, I think, you know, what you were saying, it was a goal of like showing that queer Asian people are not a monolith. I feel like um, often when I see a queer Asian person on TV or something like that, sometimes they could be kind of two-dimensional, um, you know, and I just wanted to try to center the gay Asian experience instead of it of our story being told by not us, which I think is often the case. Obviously, there's some exceptions. I just saw The Wedding Banquet a few weeks ago. It's beautiful. I laughed, I cried. But I feel like that's an exception to the rule. Um, so yeah, you know, from those interviews and from all those different issues I wanted to talk about, it was like I kind of felt like the good fairies from Sleeping Beauty and Maleficent being like, I'm like, my gift is the gift of, you know, whatever. Like, here are all the good attributes I'm going to give to each one to make them unique. And then like evil writer me comes along, it's like, and here's the BS that you have to deal with. And you know, here's the challenge. Like, you have these gifts, but you don't have everything to overcome this challenge. And the key is that someone else has part of the solution. And it's only when those characters come together in unison that they can figure things out. You know, everyone has their own challenge that they need to confront and solve, but without each other's support, it's not possible. Um, so yeah, I hope this story kind of inspires and celebrates community building. Um, that's very important to me right now, um, and I hope other people are recognizing that as well.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'd like to know more about the art style and why you chose it,
Mm,
because as I was reading, it really reminded me of toile fabric. I don't know if you're familiar. I can try to pull it up really quick.
yeah.
Like sort of this sort of
Oh,
thing.
yes, yes, yes. Uh-huh.
Um, and so I
Um,
was wondering, I guess you didn't take inspiration from that fabric for this, but can you talk about why you chose this art style?
yeah. Well, I guess I mentioned earlier how I wanted, the characters to look realistic, and therefore everything had to look realistic, which was annoying. And then, I mean, I just kind of arrived at it organically. Like, there was so much trial and error. I was very inspired by, oh my gosh, I'm gonna forget his name. Kim Jong-gi, who was a Korean illustrator and cartoonist. Um, just incredible, mind-blowing ink illustrations. So I looked to him as my major stylistic inspiration. Not that I could ever replicate that, nor should I. Um, but just trying to find my own version of that, of like something realistic, but like still trying to keep it somewhat loose. It's not super loose, but you can still like feel the human hand behind it, maybe. Definitely the washes that's where there's like more movement and looseness. Um, yeah, I wanted dimension. I wanted some mood in there. It was really important to me that the washes worked. I used a program called Fresco. It's an Adobe program. I have my own beef with it, but the magic of that program is that it has a live watercolor brush. So since I wasn't able to do, I mean, I would prefer to like do it by hand, right? But I was like, okay, this is an opportunity for me to have that like hand wash look, and be able to move things along faster and, undo things if necessary. Ink can be very unforgiving. You put ink on paper and it's there. It's not going anywhere. Yeah, so I looked to him. I also looked at a lot of Asian artwork for inspiration, right? So like um, Chinese, Japanese ink landscapes. I looked at, Hokusai and Hiroshige, and there was that whole aspect. And then I was also looking at comic book artists and seeing what they're doing. So uh, maybe Kim Jong-gi was an inspiration for like the line work, but I was maybe looking at Jillian Tamaki's work for how does she approach shading. I think her name is Rosemary Valero, is that her name? Who illustrated Laura Dean Keeps Breaking Up With Me. She has really interesting use of panels, right? It's not always like box, 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 box. Like she gets really interesting in her compositions. And when can I do something like that in a scene where I want to break away from standard format? So there are a lot of different types of influences wrapped up in it. But it's cool. The wallpaper that you point out. Tell me again what the name of it is.
It's toile. There's a longer name, but
Right.
it's French and I don't know how to pronounce it, so toile is fine.
Yeah, cool. I mean, and I love that stuff. I want that wallpaper in my bathroom or something. Like,
Yeah.
yeah. I should make my own Gaysians wallpaper, maybe.
I'd buy it.
Okay, great. Sign up in the comments.
So I have a question about your audience. So you have
Yes.
always written for a younger audience and
Uh-huh.
masterfully. What made you decide to dive into especially adult romance? Like, 'cause it's quite different.
Yeah, I think I mean I think of myself as a storyteller, and I just had these stories that I wanted to share, and if they happen to be adult ones. Um yeah, I think I'm very lucky. I have a children's editor. Her name's Laura Godwin, who worked on all of the Elliott books and Flamer. And she and my agent, Brenda Bowen, have been like so influential in my growth as a writer. And basically, like my editor was just like, if you've got a story, like don't worry about what age it should be marketed for. Just write the story, and that's our job to figure out like who's this book for, who do we want to share this with. So I think it's just part of the process of being a writer is like what is speaking to you. And I arrived at the idea for Gaysians because Flamer was about to come out or just came out. This was 2020. And I'm thinking about I had some projects lined up, but I'm like, what's the next big thing I want to do? And people were asking like, will there be a Flamer sequel? And I was like, well, I don't know. I was thinking about like, because Flamer is autobiography, or autofiction, I should say. It's autofiction. And I was like, well, if we're basing it on my own life, I was still very closeted in high school, and I had struggles and some wins, but I'm like, I don't really want to tell a story about a kid that's in the closet who remains in the closet throughout high school. That sounds like a bummer to me. So I started thinking about when I actually did come out. And while college is like interesting and there's a lot going on, there, I started to think about like, oh, but when I moved to Seattle and I met other people like me, that's where things really got interesting. So that's what kind of, I just got lit up when I thought about those times. And that's when things just started flowing naturally. So yeah. And then I thought of the title and I was like, well, now I can't not do it. Right. Like, and I also want to be clear, I started writing this in 2020. 2021 is when book banning really started to rear its ugly head en masse. So I don't want there to be any confusion about like, it's not like I've left the children's book world because I got scared off, because I certainly have more children's titles on their way that I'm literally working on now. So yeah, I just want to do everything. So I'm just me dancing back and forth, genre to genre. I'm working on my first middle grade right now. After that will be a picture book and illustrating another middle grade for someone else. So yeah, I think it's just about what inspires you.
I'm going to jump in because I had a question that I'm so glad you mentioned. Well, I wanted to talk both about Flamer and I wanted to talk about book banning. And so we did so as I said, we're the Office of Human Rights, but we partnered also with the library for a Rock Band Book Club book series that ran from June 2023 to June 2024. And we looked at the 10 most challenged books from 2022, according to the ALA, which of course was 13 because there were some ties. And Flamer was one of the ones that we read. And I think I sent, actually, I hope you got it. We got some wonderful feedback about that I sent over to your colleague. I hope you saw like how people were really so grateful. And so this is one of the things I wanted to talk about the reception. I mean, that Flamer is a frequently challenged book. It has a side effect, of course, of keeping it in the news and therefore in people's hands. So there's this kind of like strangely positive side effect of being a frequently challenged book, I think. And the people who get to read it, at least what we have found, what we hear, is that they're so grateful for it, for its existence and for the story that it tells. And so I wanted to talk to you a little bit about, or have the audience hear from somebody whose work has been on the receiving end of this, and like how important the freedom to read is, and what does it mean for you as an artist and a writer and a speaker and a human who's had these experiences to have your work be on the receiving end of these kinds of things.
I mean, it's a lot all at once, right? I've had a few years to kind of get used to it, which feels weird to say, but of course it was quite overwhelming and demoralizing in the beginning. I think what really kept me up late at night and continues to is the readers that the book bans affect, right? Because we're creating these books, to help people in need. And now those people don't have access to stories that are meant to help them. What doesn't get spoken about Flamer during book banning is that it's a book about suicide prevention, basically. They don't talk about that. They, will take a scene or two out of context and make it sound like I'm trying to create pornography for kindergartners, when it's like, no, it's a book about teens for teens. And it's just very honest. So that's the big downside. And yes, there has been an upside in that the titles that do get the attention, which most of them do not, yes, Flamer stayed in the discourse, and so maybe more people are reading it now than before. There was a dip, I think, in the beginning, because of the sort of soft censorship of people being too scared to buy it for their classroom or library, or people just didn't really know what was going on and how important it was. And that's changed, right, as the years have gone on. And there are a lot of titles that are getting challenged and banned that don't always make it on those lists. And so I think those people are hurting a lot. I know between the book banning and COVID, my school visits plummeted, and that was like a huge part of my income also was visiting schools. And I very rarely get invited to elementary schools anymore. I mean, it was like part of my bread and butter.
Wow.
And yeah, now I get invited to libraries and universities and more adult settings. So that's unfortunate. You know, and it's partly because of the banning and challenges and restraints put on educators, and part of it is like our school budget funding being cut everywhere. It's just kind of a perfect storm. So there's that. But also all this, you know, all the book banning nonsense just kind of fuels me. It just kind of proves the point of why these books need to exist in the first place, because the act of banning a book is the act of erasure. The act of taking a group of books that are created by and for the, you know, a certain type of person, right? If you look at that list, the beginning of the list was mostly marginalized peoples, right? They're books about for people of color, queer identified people, books about protecting women's bodies. These are the books that were being chosen. And now we're seeing, oh, there are maybe more mainstream folks that are being targeted now. There are like white hetero cis, you know, stories that are being like, oh, but not that either. And so it's just proving this point of like, you know, they'll always come for the usual scapegoats first, the low-hanging fruit, and then the other folks are like, oh yeah, we don't want anything like that. But then really it's like all of our rights are connected. So if you take away one person's rights, you're disenfranchising yourself as well, because now you've opened the door. So all this is just like proving a point, unfortunately. So, and it's going to take, you know, communities showing up. This is not just like, I hope someone up there resolves this. This is like, no, do you know what's going on in your own schools and libraries? Because it only takes one angry person, you know, to get a book banned in a community of perhaps thousands of people who don't want that. So yeah, it's, you got to show up.
Really, I appreciate that. So for everybody watching today. So first of all, thank you for tuning in, but like show up. And I think we've said this before, and I want to say it again. When you hear about a book that's challenged, like read it. And you might not like every book. That's fine. We don't have to like every book, but like let's read it and like find out like what's going on and like what is it? Like don't be afraid of something that someone else has challenged, you know. And I think that freedom to think, you know, and freedom to make decisions for ourselves is so important.
Yeah. And I think everyone has the right to not read something, but you don't have the right to tell others they can't. I think that's a very big distinction.
We have some really nice comments. I'm just going to share this one. I'm going to hand it back to my colleagues to ask you some more questions. But here's a nice comment who's offering sincere thanks to Mike Curato, who's a 52-year-old first-generation Filipino from Virginia, a lapsed Catholic, and an ex-Boy Scout. I'm amazed to see myself and my experiences reflected. Just wanted to share that.
Thank you, Mark. And, you know, that's a great segue, because one of the incredible things about when Flamer came out was, you know, when I was 14 and going through all that, I thought I was a total freak and there was no one else like me in the world. And when I didn't see myself in the world, I was like, maybe I'm not supposed to be here. But now I'm hearing from people like you, Mark, and like so many other people like us, like just like us. Like you're not the first person. Like someone literally messaged me on Facebook and was like, how are you in my brain? And like, how do you have all my memories? And we have like the same story. And so it's wild to think, you know, that there are times when we think we're all alone and like no one else feels the way we do, when really there are so many others. We just don't know that we're out there, right? So I mean, it's one thing that I hope the younger generations might get something out of social media. I think social media obviously um, is a big problem, I think, for youth development. But at the same time, someone who's in the closet in a non-supportive community, maybe it's a portal for them to see what's possible and see like, oh, there are people like me out there. So anyway, but yeah, we didn't have that in 1995. I only had MTV, so if it didn't get on there, how would I know?
I think it's really interesting that you bring up MTV because that was really my first kind of understanding about how large the AIDS epidemic had gotten in the
Mm-hmm.
90s. And as someone who came of age in that period, and what I love about your book and a lot of other books is that I'm finally feeling like the 90s and the early aughts have been, we're getting stories from that period, and I feel very seen, but also like you said, really important stories that save lives. And having friends who died in that epidemic, having known my favorite character in this, I think, is Stephen, which was very surprising to me. But in the same way, his interactions as a nurse, and I was just curious about that kind of episode because it was so moving and it was so very much so part of that period. And I'm just kind of curious if it came from a place of knowledge or just kind of imagination. But also, I find it interesting that there are these well placed queer people in medical settings. Like I'm thinking Angels in America. I'm thinking, and I just there's a part of me that hopes that there are people like that for others when they're all alone, because it's so, that in particular was just really moving. So I'm just really curious, like why you decided to include that, how you decided to kind of bring that into the story that is really about a lot of joy and discovery and things like that. Could you talk to that a little bit?
Yeah. Thanks, Audrey. So there are, okay, well, I'm Filipino, so like I'm related to 10,000 nurses, right? Um, there's so many Asian people who work within the medical industry, from the entire range of jobs, right? um and as I said before, like there were certain stereotypes that I wanted to like start out with as a yeah, just a starting place. And I'm just like, of course there's going to be one of these people is going to be in the medical profession. Like, will they be a doctor or will they be a nurse, like, and I feel like we hear a lot about, there's this stereotype of like Asian people being expected to be doctors by their parents. I'm just like, okay, well, let's not go there. And I don't know. I love nurses, and I wanted someone to be a nurse in this book. And I'm trying to remember like how I arrived at Stephen having this patient. Um, I really would have to go back in my notes. Like I don't remember. But I mean I can see how I'm like, okay, I need someone to kind of bring Stephen back to his roots, that he has shut out for so long. Um, and there were people that I talked to who have that immigrant experience. Like I came here when I was really young, and I was really pushed into like trying to be as American as possible, so that we would be accepted, right? So like really working on speaking English without an accent, um, and things like that. So yeah, it's interesting that you brought up the epidemic, because I also thought about AIDS. Obviously, like AIDS is still with us in the early 2000s. It's still with us today. And I kind of felt like, okay, there are a lot of stories about HIV and AIDS, and there were certain tropes I wanted to avoid, but I think you're right. Like that history of caretaking within the queer community is something that I wanted to instill in the characters. So yeah, and I also I've had people in my life who have dementia. I have friends who are dealing with seeing their parents go through dementia, and it's like horrifying. And so I'm sure that was like, I was like, okay, this is a way, for someone who can't separate the past and reality, like they are a portal, right, for Stephen to get sucked back in time. Yeah. Sorry, I'm not sure if that was like a
No,
the answer you were looking for, but
no, it's great. Like I said, like we've had a lot of writers lately of kind of writing about that period and everything, and I just
yeah,
it's really great that you've brought. I just really enjoyed the periodization of this. So
yeah, and I there are things about the book that I'm like, do people understand? Like younger folks, like, do people understand what's not being said out loud? Like, why there's a scene where Stephen is having sex, and like this guy is trying to have sex with him without a condom, and he kind of freaks out. And it's like, do younger generations like understand why he's so upset, for someone who's so sex positive even at the time? And it was just something that I was hoping, I don't know, I hope it comes through in the subtext. Yeah.
Well, I want to bring us back to ending on somewhat of a light note, because we probably only have time for one more, and that was heavy. It was important, but it was a little heavier. We can't end there. So I want to ask you, I know you probably think you're not supposed to have a favorite, but do you have a favorite from this ensemble?
I definitely have a favorite.
Okay, good. Who is it?
Kay is hands down my favorite character. I just love her so much because she is so determined to be herself, and I think that's so inspiring, and I just really admire her, and she's someone that I want to be like, because AJ, it's funny because I'll tell people like AJ, I find the most annoying of the characters, probably because he's too much like me, like my younger self, where I'm like, oh God, like looking back on your past, and like, oh God, like, why did you do that? Whereas Kay is like, okay, this is the person I'm aspiring to be, like someone who can rely on herself and can like give to her community, and is brave enough to be her honest, authentic self. And when I was writing for Kay, there were so many moments I was writing for her that I just like started crying. There's a scene, I don't want to spoil it, but towards the end of the book where, all that strength gets stripped away, and she's trapped. She's trapped in this really bad place, and she needs her community to show up for her. After everything she's invested in them, she tells them, she's like, I need us to show up for each other, or I can't do this. So again, like strength and vulnerability. And when she finally breaks free of her entrapment, I was I was weeping at my computer, and like there were tissues everywhere. I'm just like, I'm so proud of you.
Well, that
So, yeah.
translated to the reader as well, because I was also sobbing during that scene.
Well, good. Sorry, not sorry. Yeah.
I'm sorry, but we are unfortunately out of time. And I have to tell you, Mike, it has just been incredible having you with us. So thank you so much for taking the time to join us.
Yeah, thank you all. Yeah, thanks, Prince George's County. Lovely talking with y'all, and to all of you wherever you are.
Yeah. Thank you, all of you tuning in. We love it that you, whether you're joining us live or you're watching us on demand later, thank you for choosing to spend your time with us today. The very best way that you can support Mike is to buy his books. This new book, Gaysians, that we've been talking about today, is so beautiful. Big, as we talked about, is a big, beautiful book. There's so much in it. It's beautiful in story and also beautiful in art. And so please get it. And if you're not in a position to buy today, you can take it out from your favorite local library system. If they don't have it, you can ask for them to get it. We do have lots more wonderful programming coming up, and we invite you to check out our website. Again, the Office of Human Rights. We are at civilrights.mypgc.us. And please visit our friends, the library system, who have a million wonderful things going on every single day. I think you can take that to the bank, pgcmls.info/events. Please visit them. Again, thank you everyone for being here. Mike, it has been absolutely fantastic and really a true honor from all of us. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
All right. So long, everyone.